A woman collapsed at his porch, and when the widower's children saw her, they whispered, "Mama finally came." But who was she, and what was she running from? The storm had passed just before dawn, leaving behind a sky the color of bruised lilacs and a world that smelled of wet cedar and scorched earth. Noah Merrick, a man carved hollow by time and grief, stood on the porch of his worn-out cabin, his hand curled tight around a chipped coffee mug that hadn't held warmth in hours. He didn't flinch at the creak of the windmill. He didn't glance back into the house where 3 pairs of eyes were watching him from the gloom. He just stared out into the waking forest like he was waiting for something to arrive, or maybe someone. Then came the thud. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It sounded like a sack of potatoes hitting the porch boards, but it stopped time. Noah lowered his mug and stepped forward slowly, unsure whether it was an animal, another branch torn by the storm, or something worse. It was a woman. She was curled sideways on his porch, mud streaked up her dress, her bare feet blistered raw, hair soaked and tangled like river moss. She was breathing barely, but her chest hitched like every breath fought through broken glass. Her arms were scraped. Her cheek had a welt, but it was her hands that stopped him. Calloused, dirt packed under the nails, and clutching something so tightly it took him a second to see it was nothing, just clenched fists. As if she'd died trying to hold on to something she'd already lost. The screen door behind him groaned. "Noah," came a small voice. He turned. Nathan, the oldest at just 7, stood barefoot in the doorway, his little sister Liddy peeking out from behind his shirt. And then Ben, the youngest, only 4, with a runny nose and one sock hanging off his foot. He toddled past the others, squinted at the woman, and said, "Mama." Noah froze. Liddy gasped, clutching Nathan's hand. Ben took another step forward and whispered, "Mama came." Noah didn't move. His bones locked. His mind screamed that this was impossible. That grief could trick children into believing anything. Their mother had been gone for 2 years, buried up the ridge beneath the twin aspens. But the woman lying half dead on their porch, she stirred just then, lifted her head barely an inch, and opened her mouth. "Noah," she rasped. That was all, then she went limp. It took an hour to stop the children from sobbing. Another hour to get her cleaned up, wrapped in blankets and lying on the cot by the fire. Noah worked like a man possessed because he didn't know what else to do. Every time her lashes fluttered or her breath caught, he flinched. He didn't recognize her. Not really. She was thin, older than his late wife had been, and her face was so weather-worn it could have belonged to a drifter or a missionary or a mother of 10. But she'd said his name. And worse, the children believed she was meant for them. Ben sat beside her now, holding her limp hand. He hadn't moved in 2 hours. Liddy kept whispering prayers over and over, asking God not to take her away. Nathan stared at Noah like he was waiting for the truth. The kind of truth that children shouldn't have to ask for. "She's not your mama," Noah said finally, his voice thick. "She can't be." "But she came," Nathan whispered, "like we asked." Noah blinked. "What?" Nathan's face flushed red, lips trembling. "We asked God for her, last night, all of us." Liddy piped up, "We did. We all did, right before bed. We asked for Mama to come back or someone like her, someone who'd love us, and she came." Noah felt something crack in his chest. The woman groaned again. She was burning up now, cheeks flushed deep red, breathing ragged. He soaked another cloth, pressed it to her head, and tried not to look into her face. It was easier that way, less dangerous, but her lips moved suddenly and he leaned close. "Don't let them take me," she whispered. "Who?" Her eyes fluttered. "I ran. I didn't know where else to go." Noah tensed. "Who's after you?" She didn't answer, just whimpered and turned her face toward Ben like even in delirium. She knew she was safe beside a child. That night Noah sat in the dark while the wind howled around the cabin again. The storm had passed, but the forest never rested. Neither did his mind. He kept going back to the way she'd said his name. Not like a stranger, not even like a friend, but like someone who knew what it meant to be alone and was begging not to go back to it. And that hand, those calloused hands, she wasn't just running, she fought. Whatever she'd left behind, it had tried to keep her. Around midnight there was a sound outside, not the storm, not an animal. Boots. Multiple sets. Noah stood slowly, loaded his rifle. Outside someone called softly, "You seen a woman come through here, mister. Pale, muddy, wounded. She stole something that don't belong to her." Noah didn't answer. Another voice added, "We ain't looking for trouble, just a thief." Inside the cabin, the woman sat bolt upright, eyes wild. "Noah," she gasped, "please don't let them take me. I didn't steal. I took what was mine." The door rattled under a knock. Ben screamed. Liddy rushed to her side. Nathan picked up a skillet like he was ready to defend the whole family with one swing. Noah stared at the door, heart pounding. He could hand her over. He could lie. He could shoot. But all he said was, "This is my house. You're not welcome here." The porch creaked again. Then silence. Then the thud of retreating boots. He didn't sleep that night. Neither did she. By morning, the children were asleep in a heap on the floor near her cot, their little bodies curled around her like they'd known her their whole lives. She stroked Ben's hair as he mumbled in his dreams. She hummed something low and soft that Noah didn't recognize. Then her eyes met his. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said. "I was just trying to find safety." "Who are you?" Her mouth twitched. "Do you want the truth?" "Yes." "I don't know anymore. I was a wife, a mother, a servant, a prisoner, but now," her voice caught, "now I'm just trying to survive." He stared at her, something icy crawling up his spine. "Was there really something taken?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her hand and showed him what she'd kept clenched all this time. A small silver cross, bent and rusted, but unmistakably old. It wasn't hers. It had belonged to his wife. The same one buried beneath the aspens. He knew because he'd carved her initials into the back himself. Noah didn't speak for a long time. The woman sat silent too, holding the bent silver cross in her palm like it had more weight than her own life. Her thumb ran across the initials on the back, R.M., and Noah felt as if the floor itself had dropped from under him. The fire crackled. Somewhere outside, a hawk shrieked as morning took hold of the ridgeline, but inside that small log cabin, nothing moved but breath and thought. "Where did you get that?" Noah asked at last. She didn't look up. Her voice came small, almost reverent. "I found it at the bottom of an old cedar box. It wasn't meant for me to find." Noah stepped closer, just enough for the light to strike the cross. It was unmistakable. That was Rebecca's. The only thing he had buried not with her body but in the box of her letters. A box that had disappeared the same night the fire took their first barn. A night that had never added up. One he'd never been able to make peace with. "You said you didn't know who you were," he said lowly. "But now you're holding something that was stolen from me years ago. So I'll ask again, who are you really?" She finally looked at him. Her face wasn't defensive, wasn't guilty, just raw. "My name is Miriam," she said. "Miriam Kale, or it used to be. The man I ran from, he made sure I forgot who I used to be. Every day under his roof was a name stripped away, a truth replaced. I don't know how I ended up with that cross. Only that when I saw it, something told me to run, and that if I could just make it far enough, someone would recognize it. Someone like you." Noah didn't want to believe her. His head begged him not to. But there was something in her voice that matched what lived in his bones. That hollow grief. That dry, buried scream of someone who had clawed their way through something unnameable and still had pieces of it under their nails. "She's not our mama," Nathan said from the corner. Noah turned, startled. He hadn't noticed the boy wake up. Nathan stood with his arms crossed, jaw set like his father's, eyes brighter than any child should have been. "She's not," he repeated, "but she's scared, and God tells us to help people who are scared." Miriam swallowed, her eyes stinging. Ben stirred in her lap. "You're warm," he mumbled. "Mama used to be warm." Later that day, while the children played in the field behind the cabin, Noah and Miriam sat across from each other at the old kitchen table. The air between them felt like it held too much history for two people who just met, but the silence was thick with things unsaid. "What happened the night you ran?" he asked. Miriam didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted to the small wooden cross above the hearth. "There was a room," she began, her voice dull. "A room in the cellar, no windows, just dirt walls and ropes nailed into the beam overhead. I was kept there more times than I can count. Every time I questioned where I was, every time I remembered too much. I think I used to have a family before him, a child, maybe two, but he burned all the papers, told me I was imagining things, told me God had cursed me with dreams." Noah felt a chill crawl across his shoulders. What was his name? "I only ever called him Mister," she said. "That's what he wanted. He didn't let people get close. No neighbors, no visitors, just business. He had land, livestock, and a barn with a padlock too rusted to be just for show." Her hands trembled. "He never let me speak to his sons, said they were dead to him. But one day I was cleaning a desk and found letters. Letters from a woman named Rebecca Merrick. She was desperate, trying to get back to her children, but the replies weren't hers. They were his, threats, warnings, orders to forget the past." Noah's breath stopped. "I don't know how I knew to take the cross," she said, tears welling. "But I did, and I ran that night. I didn't sleep. I didn't stop. I just followed the mountain path until my legs gave out. I thought I would die. But then I saw the cabin, and I saw him. You." That evening, the children played quieter than usual. They stayed close to the house. Nathan kept glancing up at the hills like he expected someone to come out of the tree line. Liddy picked wildflowers and wove them into little chains. Ben held onto Miriam's skirt and wouldn't let go. Noah watched them from the porch, watched her. He didn't know what to do with her story. Part of him wanted to believe it fully. Part of him said it was too convenient. But the letter, that name, Rebecca, his late wife, and those threats, he had never seen her again after that barn fire. Her body hadn't been found, just ashes. The sheriff had ruled it an accident, a fox lantern overturned, but Noah had never believed it. Now a woman had come from the forest, holding Rebecca's cross, claiming she'd escaped a man who owned livestock, barns, and secrets. "I need to see that place," Noah said. Miriam looked up startled. "No. I need to know what happened to Rebecca. If you saw her letters, if she was there." "It's too dangerous." "You don't have to come." She hesitated, then nodded. "But you won't find it easy. He moved after every incident, buried things, rebuilt barns under new names. The place I ran from was called Hollow Ridge, but it might be burned by now." Noah stood. "Then I'll start at the ridge." He left before dawn the next day, after writing a note for Nathan to watch the others and not open the door for strangers. Miriam sat by the fire, watching him lace his boots. "If you don't come back," she whispered, "they'll think I made you leave." He paused. "Then don't let them think that." Outside, the wind had changed. A new storm was forming over the pass. He rode his horse hard up into the hills, every mile churning more questions than answers. Who was Miriam? Who had she once been? And what twisted soul would steal another man's wife, then erase her from the earth? At the crest of the ridge, he found what remained of Hollow Ridge. A burned barn, a crumbled chimney. But deep in the ruins he saw something unburned, a child's toy, handmade, wooden, painted with initials, B.M. Ben Merrick. His son. He staggered back, heart thundering. Could it be? No, it wasn't possible. But it was. He dug deeper, found the cellar, still intact though half filled with caved-in beams and ash, and there, under a cracked board, he found letters, half burnt. One bore his name. The others were smudged, but a few held the name Miriam written in a feminine hand. They weren't strangers. They'd been prisoners together. Back at the cabin, Miriam sat in the rocking chair with Ben asleep on her chest. Liddy dozed beside the hearth. Nathan sat at the table, sharpening a stick into a dull spear. "They were here again," he said as Noah stepped in. Noah froze. "Who?" "Riders asked for her again. I said you weren't home." "Did they leave?" Nathan nodded. "But one said something. He said, if he wants to keep a ghost, then he'll meet the ones who made her." Miriam's face went pale. "What does that mean?" Noah asked. "They're coming," she whispered. "The ones who broke us. The ones who buried your wife and turned me into something I don't remember being." Noah stepped closer. "What did they do to her?" Miriam's hands shook. "They took her away, told me if I spoke her name they'd silence her for good, but I saw her. They had her in that cellar once, just long enough to take her last letter. Then she was gone." "Gone where?" "I don't know." Noah felt his knees give out as he slumped into the chair across from her. For years he'd mourned a woman he never buried. For years he'd told his children she was in heaven, when maybe she was just down the mountain, locked in a stranger's cellar, calling his name. "Do you believe in miracles?" Miriam asked softly. He looked at her, eyes wet. "I used to," he said, "when she was alive." "Then believe again," she said. "Because they're coming, Noah, and you'll need more than a rifle to survive what they bring." The next morning came heavy and gray, with a mist that didn't lift. The ridge was swallowed by fog, and the trees looked like hunched silhouettes whispering to each other. Noah didn't trust the quiet. Not anymore. The wind didn't move like it used to. The birds weren't singing, and even the creak of the windmill seemed off, as if nature itself had paused to hold its breath. Inside the cabin, the air was thicker than smoke. Miriam hadn't slept. Neither had Noah. Nathan kept to the corner, carving notches into a long branch. Liddy sat beside the fire, hugging a folded dress of her mother's she dug out from the trunk. Ben, usually so full of questions, so attached to Miriam these past few days, had curled into himself and refused to eat. Noah knew why. They all did. Because the past wasn't done with them, and something or someone was coming down that mountain trail. "What did they mean?" Noah asked again, his voice low as the two of them stood by the window. Miriam didn't answer right away. Her hands were folded tight, knuckles white. "If he wants to keep a ghost, he'll meet the ones who made her. That's what they said." "Yes," she whispered, "because that's what they called us. Ghosts. The women who survived. The ones who came out of those barns and sheds and backwoods homes. They said we weren't real anymore. That we were just broken things full of memory and poison. That no man would want us unless he was cursed too." Noah swallowed. "So they buried the truth." She nodded. "They made sure none of us could speak. Those who did vanished. I kept quiet until I saw that cross." He looked at her, jaw tight. "You knew my wife." "I don't know what she was called, but I saw her. They didn't keep her long. She was loud. She fought. She knew things about him. I think she recognized Mr." Noah flinched. "Recognized?" "I think he used to be someone else, before he changed his name. She knew who he was, called him by another name. He got so angry he locked her up. I heard her scream for days, then silence, then nothing." Miriam's voice cracked. "She might have died there," she said, "or worse." That evening, before the sun dipped behind the pines, Noah gathered the children. They sat on the floor in front of him, wrapped in blankets. Miriam stood behind them, a silent shadow. "I need to tell you all something," Noah began. "It's about your mother." Liddy looked up with big eyes. "Is she still alive?" Noah paused. "I don't know. I think she might have been taken. Years ago, not by God, but by bad men." Nathan's face twisted in confusion. You said she was in heaven. I thought she was, Noah said, his voice hoarse. I thought the fire took her, but now I think it was something worse. Ben crawled into his lap. Is Mama gonna come back? Noah hugged him tight. I don't know, son, but I promise I'm going to find the truth, and if there's even a chance she's still out there. He looked at Miriam. I won't stop. They left before dawn the next day. Noah didn't want to, but he knew the danger wouldn't pass by ignoring it. He saddled up, packed food, left Miriam with the rifle and told Nathan, now the de facto man of the house in his absence, not to open the door unless he heard the family whistle. Don't let them trick you, Noah warned. They'll come as cowboys, as traders, maybe even as lawmen, but if they ask for her, you know what to do. Nathan nodded, with a weight too heavy for his shoulders. Then Noah disappeared into the trees. He followed the old logging trail down into Bear Hollow, a dead patch of valley no one liked to speak of. A place where years back a string of women had vanished during the winter months. Everyone blamed wolves, but Noah remembered something else, a group of riders who passed through town, always clean-shaven, well-dressed, polite, preachers and landmen. They bought feed, tipped heavy, smiled too much. Now as he passed into the edge of the hollow, Noah saw the fence. Barbed new. And behind it an estate. Stone walls, a gate, 3 barns, and smoke curling from a chimney. It wasn't a ranch, it was a fortress. He approached slow, pretending to be a trader, but a man stepped from the shadows of the gatehouse, eyes too sharp, hands on a lever rifle. State your business. Looking to trade furs, Noah said. Heard this place might take some. The guard didn't blink. No traders expected. Even better, I like surprising people. A second guard joined him. Name. Noah hesitated. Willard. They exchanged glances, then nodded. You'll need to leave your weapons. Noah smiled. Of course. He unstrapped his rifle, his spare one, the decoy. And as he stepped through the gate, he counted 6 more men in the yard, 2 on horseback, 1 by the barn, another near the well. All armed. All watching. Inside the main house, he was led to a parlor. It was too clean, too quiet. Lace curtains and leather chairs, the kind of place a preacher might sit to judge sinners. Then he entered. Gray-haired, clean hands, smelled like soap and rosewater. Welcome, he said, voice smooth. I'm Mr. Halberd. Noah's heart dropped. That name. Rebecca had once mentioned a man by that name years ago, in passing. A land surveyor who came by the ranch, asking about the borders. She said he made her uncomfortable. Now here he was. Noah shook his hand. Willard, he lied again. Halberd's grip was too soft. What can I help you with? Halberd asked, smiling too broadly. Furs from the ridge, thought you might trade. We're well stocked, I'm afraid, but I do appreciate the offer. Noah nodded, playing along. As he turned to leave, he glanced toward the hallway and saw a door slightly ajar. Inside, a table, a map, and a photograph. Of Rebecca. Still young, still alive. Taped to the wall. Noah didn't sleep that night. He stayed at an old trapper's shack 2 miles north of the estate, staring into the fire. They had her. Or had. At some point, Rebecca had been in that place. And that meant everything Miriam said was true. He thought of the children, of Ben holding Miriam's hand like it was the only safe place left, of Liddy's quiet hope, of Nathan's silent stare. They deserved to know the truth. But more than that, they deserved justice. The next morning before sunrise, Noah returned. This time through the back fence. The dogs barked, but he'd baited them with jerky laced in powder that make them sleep till noon. The guards sloppy, overconfident. He slipped into the barn first. Empty. But there beneath a tarp was a set of old belongings, a trunk with women's clothes, a book with names written on the inside cover: Rachel, Naomi, Sarah, Clara, then Rebecca. No last name. But it was her handwriting. He flipped the pages. Each woman had written a few lines. Some hopeful, some frantic. One read, "If you find this, tell my babies I love them. Tell Noah I never gave up." His hands shook. He closed the book, stashed it in his coat, and crept back toward the house. But before he could reach the edge of the trees, someone grabbed his collar. "You came back," a voice hissed. It was Halberd, and he had a pistol to Noah's gut. "You're not a traitor," Halberd said calmly, leading him toward the shed. "You're the widower. I should have recognized your eyes. They match hers." "What did you do to her?" Noah growled. Halberd didn't answer, just smiled. "We offered her peace, same as all the others. Some accept it, some don't. Those who fight well, the world forgets them." The shed door opened. Inside, a chair, a rope, a gag. But no one in it. Noah jerked back. Halberd's smile fell. "She was here," Halberd muttered. "2 days ago. Said she heard your name in the wind. Said she remembered." "Where is she now?" Noah demanded. "I don't know. She ran again. That's what they do. They run. Then they come back. They always come back." Noah headbutted him. Hard. Halberd went down. Noah bolted into the woods. He didn't stop until he reached the cabin. Miriam was on the porch, her face pale. "They know," she whispered. "They knew," he corrected, "but now they're scared." He handed her the book. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, saw the names, the lines, the lives lost. And in the final page, a note written in fresh ink. A note not there when Noah first opened the book. It read, "Tell my husband I heard the whistle in my dream. I'm coming home. Rebecca. Alive." Noah stared at the final line in the book as though it might vanish if he blinked. His hand brushed over the fresh ink again and again, trying to feel what words could never fully hold. That line, "Tell my husband I heard the whistle in my dream. I'm coming home," wasn't something a captor would write. It wasn't a trap or a cruel joke. It was her. He knew it, deep in his bones. Just like he knew the scent of her hair, the hush of her prayers before bed, the weight of her hand on his back when he was drowning in worry. Rebecca was alive, and somewhere, somehow, she had escaped. "She's coming back," Miriam whispered, eyes wide with wonder like she didn't believe what she was seeing. "She made it out." Noah looked up at her, "But where is she now?" Miriam didn't answer. Her face was pale, hands trembling as she clutched the book to her chest. "She couldn't have written that long ago," he said. "The ink's fresh." "Then they're closer than we think." Inside the cabin, Nathan stood silent by the window, one hand clutching the curtain. "Riders," he said, barely audible, "coming down the trail." Noah rushed to his side. 4 of them. Black coats, wide-brimmed hats. One had a scar across his jaw. Another chewed a matchstick like he wasn't riding into someone else's home. "They're not hiding anymore," Noah said. Ben scrambled into Miriam's lap. "Are they bad men?" Miriam kissed his head. "Yes, sweetheart, but we're not alone." Noah stepped outside, rifle in hand, and stood on the porch. The riders didn't speed up. They didn't draw. They just stopped at the edge of the clearing like they were judges waiting on a verdict. The lead one tipped his hat. "Mr. Merrick, we'd like a word." "Then speak from there." He smiled. "We're missing a woman, one who don't belong to you, and we heard tell she might be here." "You heard wrong." The man dismounted. "Now listen." The click of Noah's rifle was sharper than thunder. The man stopped cold. "I buried one wife," Noah said, his voice cold. "You so much as blink wrong, I'll be burying 4 more." Another man shifted in his saddle. "You don't want this fight. You're already in it." There was silence. Then the leader gave a slow nod. You got grit, Merrick, that I'll give you, but grit won't stop what's coming. That woman, she's poison. You don't see it yet, but you will. They all are. They twist good men. Make 'em forget their own children. Make 'em kill their own kin. Noah stepped off the porch, slow and steady. Then I'll take that risk. You're making a mistake. Noah's jaw clenched. So did you, years ago, when you thought you could steal a mother from her children and never answer for it. The man's eyes narrowed. She remembered. She did, Noah said, and so did I. They stared at each other. Then, without another word, the riders turned and left. But as they vanished into the trees, Noah knew it wasn't over. Not even close. That night the wind shifted again. It carried the smell of pine smoke and the faintest trace of something else, oil maybe, or pitch, something that didn't belong in the forest. Noah didn't sleep. Neither did Miriam. They took turns keeping watch, the rifle always in reach. Nathan sat beside the window until his head sagged against the sill. Liddy curled up on the rug with her dress bundle. Ben clung to Miriam like a shadow. I should leave, she whispered as the embers died down. I'm putting them all in danger. Noah shook his head. If they wanted to hurt us, they'd have tried already. They're waiting for something. Or someone. The next morning, a knock came at the door. 3 slow taps. Then silence. Noah raised the rifle and eased the door open, just a crack. A man stood alone on the porch, hands raised. He was thin, stooped, and wore a tattered preacher's coat. I have a message, he said. From who? From her. Noah opened the door fully. Rebecca. The man nodded. She's alive. She escaped. I found her 2 days ago near the river pass. She was hurt. Said she didn't know if she'd make it, but she had to get home. Asked me to deliver something. He reached into his coat, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a small linen bundle. Inside was a strip of fabric, blood-stained, but with delicate embroidery. Noah's throat clenched. Rebecca's handiwork. Blue thread stitched into a pattern only she used. A cross inside a circle, her symbol for family. She told me to tell you, the man said, voice trembling, that she remembers everything now, that she forgives you. Noah almost dropped to his knees. Where is she? He asked. I don't know. She was weak. Said she was heading north toward the cliffs. There's an old mission there. Noah blinked. St. Camillus. The man nodded. She said she used to pray there long ago. She did, Miriam whispered. It's where she baptized Ben. Noah grabbed his coat. I have to go. Miriam touched his arm. It could be a trap. He shook his head. Or it could be the last chance I ever get. He left the children with Miriam, taking the horse and enough supplies to last 2 days. The trail to St. Camillus wasn't easy. It twisted through ravines and over crumbling bridges. Twice, Noah had to dismount and walk, leading the horse through boggy marshland. By nightfall, he reached the edge of the cliffs. The mission loomed ahead, half collapsed, its bell tower leaning like a drunkard. Vines had claimed most of it, but a faint candlelight glowed in one window. He approached slow, rifle ready. Inside he found a pew overturned. Dust danced in the candlelight, and on the floor a woman. Face down, hair matted, arms limp. He rushed to her side, heart hammering. It was Rebecca. But she was alive. Barely. A woman in her 50s, with burns along her arms and a collarbone that looked broken. Her lips moved. Merrick, she said, you'd come. Where is she? He asked. North Cave water. She passed out. Noah laid her on the bench, covered her with his coat, and followed her weak directions. The northern cliff was steep, but he found a path down to the cove. And there by the rocks, a flicker of white. He ran. Slipped, fell. Scrambled up again. then stopped. A woman stood by the water barefoot, her dress torn. Her back was to him, but her posture, that curve of the neck, that slow sway as the wind pushed against her, was as familiar as his own shadow. "Rebecca," he called out. She didn't turn, just kept staring at the sea. Then slowly she sat on a rock, folded her hands and began to hum. He knew the tune. It was the one she used to sing when she held their newborns. He took a step forward. The rock shifted beneath his boot. She turned, and there she was. Older, gaunter, but those eyes, those deep, steady, unshaken eyes, they were the same. She rose, wobbling on her feet. "Noah!" He crossed the distance in 3 strides and caught her before she collapsed. She cried in his arms, long broken sobs that bent her whole frame. "I tried to get back," she whispered, "but they wouldn't let me. I know. They told me the children were gone, that you buried me." "I never stopped praying," he said, "not once." She touched his cheek. "They can't take me again." "They won't." But as they made their way back up the trail, a rifle cracked. The bullet missed, but the message was clear. They were being followed. Rebecca clutched his arm. "They know." "I'll get you home," he said. "I believe you." More gunfire echoed behind them. Noah pulled her down behind a boulder, heart racing. Then a voice rang out. "We just want what's ours, Merrick. Hand her over. She doesn't belong to you anymore." Noah chambered around. "She never belonged to you." They ran. Back down the trail. Through the vines. Across the marsh. Bullets sang past them, but somehow, by some grace, none hit their mark. By nightfall, they reached the tree line behind the cabin. Miriam saw them first. She cried out. Ben ran barefoot through the mud. "Mama!" Rebecca dropped to her knees. He flung into her arms. Liddy followed, screaming. Nathan stood still for a moment, then slowly walked forward, tears streaking his cheeks. Rebecca held them all. Noah stood back, breathing hard. Miriam came to his side. "They'll come for her," she whispered. "I know. We have to be ready." He looked at his wife, alive, fragile, glowing in the firelight. "We will be." The cabin never felt so alive. Laughter echoed through the rafters as the children clung to Rebecca like they feared she'd vanish if they let go. Liddy refused to sleep anywhere but curled against her mother's side. Ben wouldn't stop touching her face, over and over, as if trying to memorize the curve of her nose, the lines at her eyes, the warmth that could never be faked. Even Nathan, so stoic these past years, stared like he didn't dare believe what he was seeing, until Rebecca pulled him close and kissed his hair, whispering something only he heard. He closed his eyes and melted into her arms. Noah watched from the edge of the room, throat too tight to speak. He had imagined this moment 1,000 ways, waking to find her on the porch, riding into town and spotting her among strangers, finding her buried and hearing her voice in a dream. But he never imagined this. Her, trembling but alive, clutching their children like breath itself. Miriam stood behind him in the shadow of the kitchen doorway, arms folded tightly around her middle. "You should sit," she whispered. He didn't move. "You haven't eaten since yesterday." "I can't feel my legs," he admitted. She gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then feel your heart, because it's whole again." That night, after the children had finally fallen asleep in a tangle beside their mother, Noah sat beside Rebecca by the hearth. The fire cast soft gold on her face, and though time had marked her, a scar along her temple, deep hollows under her eyes, she was more radiant than he remembered. "I thought I was dreaming," she said softly. "When I heard your whistle, when the wind carried it into the cellar, I thought it was heaven calling me." He didn't answer right away, just watched the flames flicker. "How did they take you?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "That night," she began, voice tight, "I went to check the barn. There'd been a sound, a fox maybe, or so I thought, but someone was waiting. They struck from behind. When I woke, I was in a wagon, bound and gagged. They told me you were dead, that the fire had taken the cabin. They'd lit it themselves, the barn, not knowing you weren't in it. Then they planned to bring my body back days later and claimed they found it in the ashes. But something spooked them. Maybe a search party. Maybe you. So they took me farther. North, changed names, changed clothes, changed everything." Her hands trembled. "I fought," she whispered, "every day. I memorized their faces, their habits. I watched the sunrise through cracks in the wall and counted the seasons. There were others like me. Some didn't make it. Others forgot who they were." "But you didn't," he said. "I couldn't, not when I remembered Ben's cry, or Liddy's hair, or Nathan's questions. You were all I had left to live for." He reached for her hand. She gripped his like a drowning woman. Then her eyes flicked toward the door. "They'll come." He nodded. "We're ready." In the days that followed, they prepared. Noah reinforced the cabin, boards across the windows, a secondary lock on the back door. Nathan helped dig trenches just beyond the tree line, covered with netting and sticks. Miriam showed Rebecca how to reload the rifle with one hand, a trick she'd learned when her wrist had once been broken and no one had come to help. The children knew something was coming. They asked few questions. Even Ben grew quiet. "They'll want to split us," Rebecca warned. "That's what they do, take one, send a message, use fear." "They won't get that far," Noah said. But he wasn't sure. Not really. That night a letter arrived, pinned to the gate with a bone-handled knife. The paper was stiff with dried rain, the ink smeared, but the words were legible. "Your family was dead. You just didn't bury them yet. Give her back. You have one day." Noah crumpled it in his fist. They came at dusk the next day. Not by trail, but from the woods. 6 of them, silent, coordinated. 2 on the eastern slope, 3 flanking the rear, and the last, the one Noah recognized from the estate, stepped calmly into the clearing like he was taking a morning stroll. "Mr. Merrick," he called, voice syrup-smooth, "what a house you've built. What a lie you've protected." Noah stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. "No lies here," he said. "Only truth, and fire enough to burn you all." The man smiled. "We don't want the children." "I don't care." "Then think of them. Think of what they'll see. Think of what they'll lose again." Rebecca stepped out behind Noah. Her presence was like thunder. The man's smile twitched. "So," he said, "the ghost speaks." "I'm no ghost," she replied, "but you will be." The man's face darkened. "I gave you time," he said. "I gave you grace." "You gave me chains," she spat. "Then you'll die in them." He whistled. The woods exploded. Gunfire ripped through the trees. Noah shoved Rebecca inside, ducked low, and returned fire. Nathan had already taken Liddy and Ben to the crawlspace beneath the floor. Miriam fired from the attic window, dropping one man before he reached the porch. Screams echoed through the pines. The fight wasn't fair, but it was desperate. And desperation had a power of its own. One of the men reached the side window, tried to smash through, and found a pitchfork waiting. Miriam drove it through the frame, eyes blazing. Another tried the back, only to fall into a trench Nathan had filled with sharp stakes. But 2 made it inside. Rebecca grabbed the fireplace poker. The first man lunged. She swung, cracked his jaw so hard he fell without a sound. The second tried to grab her. Ben screamed. And from the shadows, Liddy rose with her mother's old sewing shears, thrusting them into the man's leg with a cry so fierce it didn't sound like a child at all. He fell. Noah tackled him, took his weapon. And silence followed. By dawn, 4 men were dead. One crawled into the woods and never came back. The last, the leader, was tied to the post outside the cabin. Bloodied, broken, but smiling. "You think this ends with me?" he croaked. "I hope not," Noah said. "I've got plenty of rope left." "You're already cursed," the man hissed. "You let a ghost back in your house. Your wife is an omen. You'll lose her again." Noah stepped closer. "Even if I do, at least this time I'll bury you with her." He walked away. Later they burned the bodies. Not out of vengeance, but to keep the forest clean. Rebecca said a prayer for each one, even the man who had taken her life apart, because hate, she said, was still a chain, and she wanted to be free. That night the stars came out. Clear, cold. Noah stood with his arms around her, as the wind finally calmed. "I'm not whole," she whispered, "not yet." "You don't have to be," he said. She looked up at him. "I don't know how to start again." "Then we won't start again," he replied. "We'll continue." The children ran barefoot through the grass. Miriam smiled from the porch. For the first time in years, there was peace. But in Noah's heart he knew. This was not the end. This was the quiet before something bigger. Something darker. And he would be ready. The days that followed tasted like borrowed time. Sunlight returned to the ridge. The wind warmed just enough to let Liddy and Ben chase each other barefoot through the meadow behind the cabin, their laughter rising like birdsong, untamed and fierce. Nathan went back to whittling by the porch, sharpening sticks into arrows with a quiet focus that made Noah proud and uneasy all at once. Rebecca hung linens on the line like she'd never stopped, folding them twice, pausing to smell the wind, tucking her hair behind her ear the way she always had when thinking too hard. And yet, Noah didn't put his rifle down, not once. He kept it leaned by the door, slept with it across his lap by the fire. He told himself it was for caution's sake, that even with 4 men dead and another fled, there might still be others, but the truth was simpler, harder. He didn't trust peace anymore. And neither did Rebecca. One morning, as the children fed the chickens, Noah caught her standing by the edge of the clearing, eyes locked on the trees. Her face was stone, her hands fists. "You see something?" he asked, approaching. She didn't turn. "No, I just don't like not seeing anything." He stood beside her. The woods were still. "You ever wonder if they'll send someone new?" she asked. "They've already tried their best." That wasn't their best. He glanced at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. "They kept things in reserve," she said. "Back then, faces I never saw, names whispered in the dark. They said if any of us got loose, they'd send him." "Who?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pointed toward the hills. "There's a man," she whispered. "They called him the Griever, said he'd buried more truths than the devil himself, said if he came for you, it meant it was the end." Noah frowned. "You really believe he exists?" "I used to think he was just a story they told to keep us quiet, but one night they brought in a girl who'd run too far. She was screaming, bloodied. Then they whispered he found her, and everyone went silent." She turned to Noah then. "I don't know if he's real, but I know the fear is." That night they boarded the windows tighter. Nathan moved his cot near the front door, clutching a wooden spear he'd carved with his father. Liddy whispered prayers before bed, asking God not just to protect Mama, but to make her not scared anymore. Ben fell asleep in Rebecca's arms. Noah couldn't stop watching the tree line. Then the knock came. Just one. Soft. Sharp. Then silence. He opened the door slowly, rifle ready. Nothing. But on the porch, something had been left. A stone. Flat, polished, and carved with one word. Remember. Rebecca stared at it for a long time. "He's real," she said. "That's how they mark his passing. Stones. Words carved without tools. No man ever saw him leave them, but if the stone shows, it means someone is watching." Noah flipped it over. On the underside, burned into the grain with a thin brand, was a symbol. A cross within a circle. Exactly like Rebecca's embroidery. Exactly like the one he'd buried with her old handkerchief years ago. He dropped it. "What does it mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but he's close." The next morning, a rider appeared on the ridge. Alone. Not fast, not slow, just steady, like someone who didn't need to rush to be terrifying. He wore black, no hat, no badge, no expression. Nathan saw him first. He called for Noah. The rider never came closer than 100 yards. Just stopped, dismounted, sat by a tree, and waited. They watched him all day. He didn't move. Didn't eat. Didn't blink as far as they could tell. At night, when the sky turned violet and the stars came out, he built a fire, small, contained, as if to say, "I'm not hiding." But he didn't approach. Didn't speak. Didn't wave. He was just there. Waiting. "Should I go talk to him?" Noah asked that evening, standing on the porch with Rebecca and Miriam. Rebecca shook her head immediately. "No, that's what he wants." "You're sure it's him?" "Look at him." Noah looked. The rider was still by the fire, arms around his knees, staring into the flame like it told him secrets. "He doesn't blink," Rebecca whispered. "He doesn't need sleep. He doesn't need food. I don't know what he is, but he's not just a man." Miriam crossed herself. "He's a devil," she said, "or something worse." By the third day, the rider still hadn't moved. Ben asked if he was a statue. Liddy cried because she thought he might be dead. Nathan asked if he could shoot him. "No," Noah said, "he's waiting." "For what?" "For us to break." That night Noah tried something. He walked halfway across the clearing, stopped. The rider stood. Noah raised one hand. "I want to talk." The rider didn't move. "I don't want more blood," Noah said. "You already took enough." Still no movement. "I buried 4 of your men. 1 limped away. I know they sent you to end it, but there's nothing left to take." The rider stepped forward once. Then stopped. "No Merrick," he said. His voice was like gravel soaked in whiskey, low, unhurried. "You made a mistake." Noah raised his rifle. "I made a family." The rider nodded. "Then prepare to bury it." He turned and walked away. Noah didn't sleep that night. He sat with Miriam by the window, both of them silent. Rebecca watched over the children. "I think he's gone," Miriam said just before dawn. Noah shook his head. "He's never gone, he just blends." Sure enough, when the sun rose, the rider was gone. No trail, no ashes, no hoof prints. Just the stone. Still on the porch. Now with a new word. Reap. That day they made a decision. "We can't wait here anymore," Rebecca said. "We have to end this. We have to go to them." "To where?" Miriam asked. "To the place it all began." She pulled out a torn page from the book Noah had brought back from the estate. It held only one address, a canyon carved into the base of the northern cliffs, once a mining camp, now abandoned. "I heard them speak of it once," Rebecca said. "Said it was the route, said all the branches led there." Noah studied the map. "We need to travel light. I can't leave the children behind." "You won't." They packed what little they could. Rations, weapons, and a prayer. 2 days later, they reached the canyon. It was worse than they imagined. empty shacks leaning like dying men, a rusted sign that read Hollow Mercy, a well that reeked of rot, and at the center a stone chapel. But the cross atop it was upside down. The symbol again, a cross inside a circle. They entered. Inside, the pews were scorched. The altar was shattered. And nailed to the far wall was a quilt stitched from rags, with names sewn in black thread. Dozens of names. Rebecca S. Miriam's. And below them, Liddy, Nathan, Ben. Noah staggered back. They were preparing, Miriam whispered. For what? To erase us, Rebecca said. Entire families. They weren't just stealing women, they were rewriting bloodlines. Noah gripped the altar. Then he saw it. On the far end of the floor, a trapdoor. Still warm. They pried it open. A ladder led down into dark. The children stayed above with Miriam, while Noah and Rebecca descended. The tunnel smelled of smoke and old secrets. At the bottom, they found a chamber. And in it photographs, journals, and cages. Empty now. But not long ago, they'd held life. Dear God, Rebecca whispered, they cataloged everything. Noah opened one book. It held sketches, measurements, observations. Not like people. Like livestock. Each entry ended the same way. Released. Buried. Or REAPD. They climbed back out. Noah's face was ash gray. This isn't just a group of men, he said. It's a religion. They believed they were purifying the land, Miriam said, holding the journal. Rebuilding the world by cutting out impurities. The wind howled. Then a voice echoed through the canyon. Now you understand. They spun. The rider. Standing on the ridge. Flanked by 10 more. Rebecca stepped forward. You can't bury truth. He smiled. I don't need to. Truth always dies on its own. He raised his hand. And the riders advanced. The riders closed in with silent precision, their horses kicking up clouds of ash and gravel as they descended the ridge. 10 of them, armed, expressionless men molded into shadows by something ancient and cruel. Behind them, the wind moaned through the hollow chapel like it was mourning what hadn't even died yet. Noah pulled Rebecca back toward the rock outcropping where Miriam waited with the children. His eyes scanned the terrain, sparse cover, little elevation. The canyon offered no good position for defense, but retreat wasn't an option now. They had found the route, the place where this nightmare had grown, and it had to end here. We hold them, Noah said, voice calm, steady. We hold them or we die trying. Miriam passed him the rifle. Then let's make the dying cost them. Liddy gripped Rebecca's hand. I'm not scared if you're not. I am scared, Rebecca said, kneeling to meet her eyes. But I'm here, and you're not alone, that's what matters. Ben whimpered. Nathan pulled him behind a boulder and crouched beside him, already gripping a small pistol with both hands. Rebecca turned to Noah. We need to split them. If they charge together, we're finished. They will, he said, but if we break their line. Miriam nodded. You want the fire. He looked at her. Think you can manage. She gave a grim smile. Watch me. The riders reached the base of the canyon. They fanned out 5 to each flank, their formation practiced, precise. These weren't ordinary men. They were trained, indoctrinated, dangerous not just because of what they believed, but because they believed it more than they feared death. At their center, the one Rebecca called the Griever dismounted. He stood tall and thin, face pale like moon-bleached stone, eyes unreadable. You found the root, he called. You dug up what should have stayed buried. Noah stepped forward. You buried people, not sins. That's what made it rot. The Griever tilted his head. Your wife was a flower. She bloomed in a prison and grew thorns. She should have died with the others. She survived, Noah said. You lost. Not yet. He raised his hand. The riders began to advance. Noah fired first. The crack of his rifle split the silence like thunder, dropping the leftmost rider clean off his saddle. That was the signal. Miriam sprang from the chapel, dragging a lit oil lamp, and hurled it toward the ridge. Flames burst against the brush, fire curling up fast and wide, splitting the riders into two columns as they were forced to veer around the blaze. Rebecca and Nathan opened fire from the rocks. 2 more riders went down. But they kept coming. Noah dropped his empty rifle and pulled his sidearm. Rebecca reloaded behind cover shouting positions. Miriam ducked behind a collapsed pew, aiming her shots low for the horses. She hit one. It screamed and reared, throwing its rider. Then came the first one on foot. He charged straight for Nathan. The boy hesitated just for a breath. Then fired. The man fell at his feet, blood pooling into the sand. Nathan stared, hands shaking, then dropped to his knees, retching. Noah grabbed him, pulled him back. You did what you had to. They're not men, Nathan whispered. They don't blink. I know. Behind them, Liddy and Ben huddled in the shallow pit Rebecca had dug the night before. She knelt beside them now, clutching a broken rifle, blade tied to the end with wire. Not horses. Not men. A bell. Old, rusted, but ringing. The chapel's tower. And no one had touched it. The bell tolled once. Twice. Then silence. Noah and Rebecca froze beneath the shattered altar. Miriam jolted awake, her fingers already tightening around the rifle. Nathan scrambled up from the corner, eyes wide. The children, Ben and Liddy, stirred in the back room, blinking into the half-light like they hadn't heard it right. But they had. Everyone had. The bell hadn't rung in decades. The tower was crumbling, the rope frayed and half gone. No one had climbed those rickety stairs since the canyon was first abandoned. And yet, it rang, loud enough to shake dust from the rafters, loud enough to wake things that should have stayed buried. Noah rose, rifle in hand, and moved toward the chapel door. Wait, Rebecca said softly. He turned. I know that sound, she whispered. That bell was the last thing I heard before they took me, before they dragged me down into the cellar. Then it's a warning, Miriam muttered from the corner, or a calling. Noah opened the door. The canyon lay silent in the pale dawn, the smoke from the fire pit still twisted in the wind. The sun was low behind the ridge. No new riders, no movement in the trees, no wind. Just the bell now still. He stepped out. Nothing. Then a figure appeared on the chapel roof. A girl. No older than 15. Thin, pale, dressed in a torn linen shift, hair tangled like thread pulled from an old doll. She stared down at him. No fear, no malice, just emptiness. Noah called out, "You okay?" The girl tilted her head, then turned and disappeared behind the steeple. They found the stairs inside the tower half collapsed, but the girl wasn't there. No footprints, no disturbed dust, only the rope now freshly cut at the base. She's not real, Rebecca said, or she's not alive. She looked real to me, Noah said. Some of them didn't die, Miriam added quietly, but they didn't come back either, not fully. The thought turned the air cold. Noah gripped the ladder, looked up into the hollow belfry. Nothing. Just the great iron bell swaying gently in the windless air. They buried the bodies before leaving. Each of the fallen riders. Even the griever. Rebecca insisted. They don't deserve to be remembered, Miriam said. No, Rebecca agreed, but we deserve to be free, and we can't carry them with us. It took most of the day. Nathan helped dig. Liddy placed wildflowers at the foot of each grave. Ben kept whispering prayers he didn't fully know but remembered from before the world had come apart. By sunset, the canyon was still. The chapel doors were boarded shut. The tower marked with a cross carved by Rebecca's own hand, not to sanctify it, but to warn others. Noah looked back once, then led them out. It took 3 days to return to the cabin. They traveled slow, careful. The forest was quieter now, as if something dark had passed through and left the trees gasping. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Something had ended. But something else had begun. Rebecca was different, not lighter yet, but more anchored. She walked ahead of the children, always glancing back, always counting them. Every time she touched Ben's head or fixed Liddy's collar or met Nathan's gaze, there was this flicker behind her eyes, a calculation, a measure of time lost. Miriam walked beside her most days. They didn't talk much. But one night by the fire, Miriam said softly, "Do you ever wonder if you were chosen for it?" Rebecca stared into the flame. "I used to think I was cursed. Now I think maybe I was spared to fight back." Noah said nothing, just reached for her hand. And for once she didn't flinch. The cabin was untouched, as if time had paused in their absence. The laundry line still sagged, the chair still leaned. The old windmill spun lazily in the dusk breeze. Even the chickens had survived. Nathan stepped onto the porch and looked out across the ridge. "It's smaller," he said. "What is?" Liddy asked. He squinted. "The world." Noah smiled. "No, you just got bigger." They rebuilt. Not just the house, but the way it breathed. Rebecca took to the garden again. It had overgrown in her absence, weeds wrapping around the old fence like grasping hands. She cleared it one row at a time, humming songs the children didn't remember but began to learn again. Miriam chose to stay. "I've lived too many years running," she said. "You need another pair of hands, and I need purpose." She slept in the old hayloft for a while, until Nathan helped her build a small shack behind the cabin. "Call it mine," she said, "but it's all of ours now." Weeks passed. The forest bloomed. So did the family. Noah began carving again, little animals for Ben, a comb for Rebecca, a new cross for the hearth. Nathan started trapping, quietly, skillfully. He moved like his father but thought like his mother. Liddy learned to fish. Ben planted seeds and named each one. One morning a traveler came up the trail, a real one this time, dusty, alone, harmless. He carried news. The estate where the riders had once gathered had burned to the ground. No one knew who lit the fire. Some said it was lightning. Others said it was something older, something angry. The traveler shrugged. "Whole place gone, just ashes and bones now." Rebecca looked out at the trees. They finally reaped themselves. One night, as they all sat by the fire, Ben asked the question they hadn't said aloud in weeks. "Will they come back?" The room went still. Rebecca leaned down, cupped his face. "No," she said, "and if they do, they won't find us hiding." Liddy asked, "What if there's more of them somewhere?" "There probably are," Noah answered honestly, "but they're not stronger than truth, and they're not stronger than us." Nathan added, "We're not the same anymore." Rebecca smiled at that. "No," she said, "we're not ghosts, we're home." The bell never rang again. But sometimes at night, when the wind passed just right across the ridge, you could hear something faint. Like a whisper of chains falling into dust. Like the memory of prayers finally answered. Like a mother humming to her children, safe at last.